Good afternoon. Oh, not coming up yet. Not coming up yet. I hate that. It's like a minute and a half wait.
Is it really?
There we go. There it is. Okay. So we can hear ourselves. Yep. Mr. Tony, can you say something, please?
Hi, how are you guys today?
Pretending to be muted. Well done. Yes, very nice. Okay. Yep. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to our first budgeting live since the big move. This is episode 1 of season 2, and we are going to be starting with moving on a budget. And we have Mr. Tony from Kettle Kitchen, who's going to be giving our US comparisons to the UK and Aussie stuff. So how are we doing, Mr. Tony? You doing good?
I'm doing good. It's an early
That's
morning,
awesome.
but I will get over that. That's fine.
Bless you. Hello, Miss Linda. How are you doing? So I thought we'd talk about a few different things because there's stuff over here that's very similar to what you guys have to do, and there's stuff that is very, very different.
Right.
And we can have a chat about the different comparisons, really, and the differences. So I thought first off we could look at some of the pitfalls, some of the unexpected costs that people may come across. So who have we got in? We've got Janine's come in. Hello, Janine. How are you doing, darling? So first off, we're going to look at double rent costs. So when you're moving...
Wait. I got to say something because I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but did Sapphire Diamond Pearls just call me Mr. Wonderful?
Yeah, I kind of skipped over that.
Oh, don't skip over that. Good morning.
Yes,
sorry, go ahead.
Linda called Tony Mr. Wonderful.
Sorry, I'm ready now. My day's good.
You all good now? We all together?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm ready.
Sensible faces.
Okay.
Yes. All right. So double rent costs. So if you're moving and not moving everything on the same day, you could be hit up for double rent costs. So you could be paying for your new property and your old property, depending on if that takes a week, 2 weeks, or in the case of us, when we moved, it took an extra 5 weeks of rent, double rent that we were paying because we got sick and couldn't move as quick as we wanted to. So that's a definite thing that has to be taken into consideration for anyone who's moving. And if you don't have that sort of money to play with, then you have to find ways around it.
Well, and I think at least over here, the other thing, which I'm sure is the same there, you also have ending contracts that have to be ended and beginning contracts that have to be started. So you have to plot and plan for those too, because those become hefty after a while.
Absolutely, they do. Absolutely, they do. You know, and in general, over here, government housing, if you go into council housing, they give you 3 days to move. That's it.
You guys got a stiff policy there. We're not quite that bad, but we make up for it elsewhere, so that's fine. But
absolutely. Okay, so the second pitfall that we found when we moved was when we asked for quotes for vans, for van hire, we were not given the inclusive price that included the deposit. In fact, they didn't even mention the deposit, and they didn't mention any insurances, because you have to pay the insurances, or if you even scratch the van, you could be up for £1,500 to compensate them, which is not great.
No.
So even though our van hire was relatively affordable. When my partner went there, when Tanny got there, he was like, what do you mean £200 deposit? We weren't told about £200 deposit. We weren't told about £35 insurance or any of this kind of stuff. So there's that. And then they also don't tell you that you have to refill the van to the point that it was beforehand. So luckily for us, it was only half full. So we only had to put £25 worth. But it's all little things that add up that, £1,500 in dollars is about $1,800. And that's an excess fee, an insurance excess if there is an accident or damage done to the van. So you would be liable for at that amount.
Right.
Anything above and beyond, their insurance will cover. But if you're not insured, then they have to pay for it. So
I think what's funny here in the U.S., and I'll just give an example of the bigger company that's around for us, and it's nationwide. It's not just here where I live, but it's called U-Haul, and they advertise all over their trucks, all over their websites, all over everything. Rent me for $29.99 to $29.99, $30 roughly, right? Or $39.99 or $19.99. So all that's dependent on which size you're getting, okay?
Right.
But what they don't tell you is exactly what you just said. Yes, it's $39.99 or $29 or $19.99 a day. They're not telling you there's an added fee for the mileage you drive, because usually if it's a local trip, you're allowed 50 miles. If it's a long distance trip, you're only allowed 200 miles. Well, if you're going 3,000 miles, 200 miles is not very much into that, okay? They don't tell you about the deposit, which you are spot on. They don't tell you about there's 3 different insurances. One's a damage insurance, one's a property insurance, and one's a fuel insurance in case you don't refill it all the way up.
Wow.
So now when you've taken that $39.99 and you actually split it up, and most people are moving in 3 to 5 days on average, that now becomes $500 or $600 a day. What happened to the $39.99 I thought I was going to get?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of brings me up to my next point is it cheaper to get a removalist?
Right.
Or a moving company, as you guys would call them? Is it going to be cheaper to do it that way or to do it yourself? And do you have mates who have vans that are willing to help you out? And the kind of things that we all kind of look for, but obviously there's always going to be hidden costs and all of that, because you don't want your mates to do it and not pay them for their fuel at the very least, and then there's however you want to thank them, whether it's a case of beer, a bottle of wine, or meal or whatever, there's all of those things to consider as well.
Oh, and so I did some looking because I wanted to make sure I was right on this. And you make a valid point. When you look at in comparison, is it cheaper for me to do it, or is it cheaper to get a moving company because of the associated costs you just talked about, even if it's just friends?
Yeah.
On average for a moving company here in the United States is $25 to $50 an hour per person. But when you think about it,
per person in the family or per person that's come to help?
Yeah. Per person that's come to help. Yes.
All right.
So if it's taking them, so if it's an 8-hour day for one person, that's $400. But if you get 2 people, they're only there for 4 hours. You're still paying the 4 hours, but you got more help now. So it's not that bad of a deal. So it is definitely something to consider. Now, the other thing I'd like to throw out there too, just because I looked this up as well, in the U.S., the national average cost for a local move, meaning less than 100 miles, is between $800 and $2,200.
Right.
Okay. I stopped to just think, I didn't know if you wanted to break that down into pounds or not, but if you don't, that's fine.
It's all good. Yep.
The national cost or average for the cost of a long distance move is about $4,000, but the range goes from $2,200 to $5,700.
Wow.
It's not cheap to do it. I don't care how you do it.
Yeah.
No. So you have to plan ahead, because that's a hit to your pocketbook, not including the rents. We haven't even talked about those being in that amount of money yet.
Oh yeah, no, we haven't talked about rent yet. Oh my goodness.
That's
Yeah,
why I
so
think this is very important, because I don't think this is not something light to move into. You
no,
need to be ready. It's almost like an emergency fund. Even
yeah,
if you never use it, you got to have it ready, because you never know when that's going to happen.
exactly, because life could happen. Your
That's right.
place could burn to the ground, and you're not, if you don't have insurance or whatever, and you've got to move straight away. What are you going to do? You
Right.
know,
Right.
what's going to happen? Or
Yep.
your landlord decides, to, for whatever reason, the house is being sold and you guys have to move, and you've got 30,
Yep.
60 days. Doesn't mean you're going to find a house in that time.
No,
But
especially
that's still
in the
only 30
market.
or 50 days to come up with thousands or hundreds of pounds,
Right.
to
Right.
be able to move. And that's not an easy feat.
No, it's not. Sorry.
So there are some ways to make removalist costs a little bit cheaper. And I'm not going to go into a lot of costs of them over here, but every single removal company works in the same way. Now, the best thing, if you are moving to a completely different town, you want to ring up the removal companies that are based in that town and ask them if they have a backload or return load that they
Yep.
can fit you in on, because they want to fill up their truck from where they've come from to go home. And
Yep.
9 times out of 10, they'll say yes, and you'll get it for a third to half cheaper than you would do if you were ordering from the place that you are starting in,
Mm-hmm.
which is a really good way of looking at it. Yeah, so especially if you're doing really long loads. If you're doing really
Yes.
big moves, backloads, because if they've got half a truck full and you've only got a small amount to move, they're going to want to fill up that truck as much as possible. Yeah.
Yep.
And the same with going back. If they don't have anything on there, they're going to go, yes, please, just
Mm-hmm.
give us your stuff.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
No, it's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. Okay.
I see that Sapphire Diamonds Pearls put in there that Penske is so much better and nice employees. So
Okay.
we have I said we have U-Haul.
Mm-hmm.
Penske is another company, and I
Right.
do agree with her from the sense of what I've heard. I've never used them, so I don't know personally, but you got to find the right place that fits your situation, that's going to give you
Mm.
what you need, that's going to provide you with the most information possible. And then she said U-Haul starts at 27.45. She's
Yeah.
not, depending on where you're at, that could change a little, but that's an average move for most people around here. That's almost $3,000.
Without
It
even
is
getting to the
not.
door yet.
Yes, yes. We haven't even talked about any of that yet.
Yeah.
Now, if you're moving, I mean, because you guys are a little different than we are, if you guys are moving into council housing, you have something, you already know what you're going to fit into theoretically, okay?
Yeah.
But most of the time when you're not in public housing of any sort, and here we call low income housing,
Mm.
you are going to get hit in the pocketbook $5,000 to $8,000 easy, and you haven't even done anything yet.
Wow.
I mean, that's astronomical when you think about that.
Yeah.
For you think about it, for somebody that makes $14,000 in a year, that's more than half your wage in
Yeah.
one move,
Not good.
in one. Yeah, it's bonkers to think about that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take you off.
That's okay.
It
I
just,
totally get that. I totally get it. And that's why we do
right,
what we do on here, is to
right,
make people aware of these things, because
right.
honestly, it took us 4 years to put the money together to move.
Yep.
Tanny decided that he was going to put away his carer's payment because it was £50 a week, and that was going to be our moving money. And he's been doing that for 4 years. It's not a lot of money to put away, £200 a month. It's not, because it took
No.
4 years. It meant that we had plenty of money left over, that we could do nice things for ourselves, like get a new fridge, which neither of us have ever done in our lives.
Right.
Tanya's 51. I'm 48.
But
Never
the
had a brand
struggle.
new fridge. What is this brand new fridge thing? I'm just like, looking at it, going, too scared to use it. you know.
But the struggle is when you're on a low income,
Yeah.
And I know you guys were able to do it because things worked out the way they did.
Yeah.
I don't even consider myself low income, but by our standards here in the US, I am.
Yeah.
If somebody's making half of what my household does, I don't know how they're able to do it. I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
Because $200 a month, that's going to kill a family over here if they're struggling already.
Absolutely. See,
So,
there's another conversation I want to have with you at another time, and we will do that on another live at some point if that's okay with you.
it's always okay. And if it's not okay
Hey.
with you, if it's not okay with me, my wife will make sure it's okay with me. So you're fine.
Oh, I know. Yeah. See, like Patty, she's awesome, man. Janine's just said, I officially had the keys to my home on the 7th of April, 1986, and my daughters decided to say hi on the 8th. Started moving the following Sunday after coming out of hospital on the Saturday. Wow.
Wow. See, but that goes,
happens.
that's exactly what I was just going to say. Life happened to her. And you don't know that. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know her situation, but just in the example, she was plotting her and one other person to move. She wasn't plotting her and someone and a whole nother family to move at the same time.
Well, not just that, but you know, if a lot of landlords won't give you the extra time to move.
No.
So then
Now,
you're stuck in a double rent situation, when all you've done is have a baby, you know, but it does throw massive spanners in the works, you know?
Right. But I think what that makes me really think about, because I wasn't even actually until you just said it, I wasn't thinking about her baby being born. I was thinking more of, it was a mom and a dad, and all of a sudden their daughter returned home with her 3 kids because something happened in her situation.
Well, there you go.
What
There's that as well, isn't
what
it?
happens if I follow that same storyline with that context, and they're moving into a senior living area where they're not allowed to have any more people? Now what do they do to their situation? Life happens, and
Life
sometimes it's
happens. Well,
cruel.
that's the thing. It's been about being organized and being
Excuse me.
for things that can happen. And I know, especially here, it's very, very difficult because there are people here who are only on £7,000 a year. Okay, so if you're on such a tiny income, it's very, very hard to put money away to do things like this, to be prepared for the unknown, you know. But
I think the unknown is the scare.
You've got to find ways, because otherwise you're going to be in a situation that you don't want to be in. And if that means that you have to move with just what's on your back and whatever you can carry, then that's what you're going to end up doing. And that's heartbreaking for so many people, you know?
Yep, you are correct.
Not only that, because if that happens, you're charged for cleaning up the house before, because you haven't been able to move things out. So you get charged for removing fees, for all of that, for dump fees, you get charged for cleaning fees, you get charged for all of that stuff because you couldn't afford to actually move. And that's stupid money as well, because they will find the most expensive that they possibly can to do the job, and they will charge you as much as they can to do it.
Right. I want to give you another thing so that's in context to it, because it's in comparison to the typical situation. I'm going to say, for somebody that's here, and so you guys call it benefits there, we call it Social Security here. Okay, I think roughly. Okay, on the Social Security benefits, an average person makes $880 a month times 12 months. That's $10,560.
Right.
When I then in turn compare that to what the amount of rent is on average, and that's not all the way, $650 a month. That's $7,800. That's giving somebody less than $3,000 a year for all the rest of their bills, their travel expenses, their food, their utilities. That does not leave a lot left over for a 12-month period.
No, it doesn't.
That's the reality. And it's in comparison, you said $7,000 for, on average, there annually. How do you do it? And we haven't talked about being able to put money aside at that scenario. No. You can't.
And the worst part about it is, when you ask people on benefits in that situation, to actually put money aside. You're kicking them in the guts because you're basically telling them, eat less.
Eat less, don't get your prescriptions,
sit round
or
the
don't
candle,
go to the doctor.
get yourself warm and get yourself a bit of light. Get rid of your TV, get rid of your internet. You don't need a phone, you don't need this, that's all privilege, but you've got a roof over your head and we'll do that, and here's a little blanket. But
right. And then we run into another conversation I think you and I have had before, is then you flip it around to the only food that you're able to afford then is the things that are not good for you, the white starchy things. Then you start having a weight problem. Then you start having health problems. It is a snowball effect. So sorry, I'll let you finish.
Sicker, and then you're on benefits for longer and all of that kind of stuff. So it's not great. It's not a great situation to be in. And that's kind of why we do these lives, is to try and give people a bit of a perspective of what they may be up for and to things that they can look to maybe to be able to help themselves a little bit. But I don't want people to feel like we're trying to kick them in the guts, because been in the same situation since 2012. Tanny's only just started working, but 27% of his money goes into taxes before we even see it, so he's not actually
I get it.
Okay, so here's the situation. You can be on universal credit if you're earning a certain amount of money, right? Okay, but after that you can't be. Now he's earning £217 over what you can be getting help for on universal credit. But he's working 13.5-hour days, and he's on the road all day, and he's humping and lumping all day long. But again, this is completely different conversation, but we're off topic. So
but I mean,
still difficult.
I know we're off topic, but I think it really is important to understand, and for people to understand, because you are valid. We're not trying to scare you. It's just the reality of life for a lot of people. And I was shocked when you threw out the number, roughly, I think you said 60 to 75% of your guys' population fits into that category. Yeah. That's scary when you think about that. But the other thing with over here is, and I'll give you a good example. My wife's mom and dad worked all their lives, 30 years. And when they needed the help, they went to DSHS, which is a benefit office here. They would not help them because they made $16 too much in a month.
Yeah, see, that's where it all falls down, isn't it?
Right.
I think
that's exactly.
But again, another conversation for another time.
Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. We need to get back on topic, because as much as we want to have this for 3 hours, we can't. It's only an hour-long show. So, professional installation of appliances. Now, this is a big one. Over here, it's very much council-based. It depends on your council, where you're living, and it depends on the wording of what they say. Now, we were told under no uncertain terms we had to have a professional gas fitter to fit our oven. We could not do it ourselves. It was not allowed. And they didn't have anyone that they would allow to do it either, even though they have gas fitters and they do all the maintenance for the gas systems in the houses. They no longer provide the service of putting in people's ovens, etc. There are some councils that will put down must be installed by a capable person. Okay, so if you're feeling capable, technically you can do it.
I was going to ask you, what is the definition?
It has to be a professional. You have to have proof of that.
Now, I was going to ask you what the definition of capable was, but that's a whole nother conversation as well.
And I found this out from a friend of mine who lived in a different council area, and his father-in-law was the head of all of that kind of maintenance, of council maintenance. And he said, "Are you feeling capable?" And he said, "Well, yeah." And he said, "Well, off you go then." So, yeah, it's fine. Okay, so if you're feeling capable and you don't think you're going to blow up your family, crack on. But the rules of that have changed as well. So there are also councils that will offer you either to have your appliances put in, or a certain amount of money to do decorating, or to have carpeting, or to help with the move. Team Breach Council is actually really good with that down south, but up here it's a little bit different, and they're very strict and not a lot gets done. So we had to have a professional put in our oven. Now, we found out from the professional gas fitter that the rules have changed of where the gas pipe is allowed to be. It now has to be 2.5 feet off the ground, which is about 70 centimeters. 75 centimeters off the ground. So we had to have a special part, a bayonet fitting to put on there. So obviously we had to pay for the part and for the gas fitter, and that was an extra £140.
So that's where I think one of the differences. I think that's where one of the other differences for us come into when you're in low income housing. It's all based on them taking care of it. You can't move into a location unless the appliances are put in, unless everything's connected,
Right.
Unless this, that, or the other. I could go on forever, but that's where it sounds like we're a little different. You guys are responsible to have that done on your own, and that's something to watch out for.
Well, see, in Australia, we're more like America, and there's always a stove, there's always an oven in the house. They may be white goods, what they call white goods, which are your fridge and your washing machine, your dryer, all of that kind of stuff. If it comes without white goods, you will still have the oven and stove in there. They have to have those in at the very, very least. At the bare minimum, it has to be the stove and the oven. So here, I have to admit, it was a bit of a culture shock for me, because when I first rented my first property, and I was like, "Oh, where's the oven?" And they're like, "Well, you have to have one." And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about? I've never had to buy an oven in my life."
I think I'd have a heart attack if I walked in and there was no appliances in the place I was renting.
I completely freaked out. I was like, "Well, where's the kitchen?" "Well, it's here." "Well, no, it's not. It's got nothing in it. What's going on?" "It's just got a couple of benches and a sink." So, if you haven't grown up in that, it's a little bit,
But I mean, it's almost like it's your expectation. You guys, again, a little different than we are. You guys move into these places, it's with the intention that now you're secure and you're okay.
Yeah.
Ours are very temporary. They're not intended to be long-term stay. They're intended to get you through a situation and move on to the next point. Right. So that in itself is a difference that when we were talking, that I was shocked by, because you guys have a different mentality of it, and I don't get why that is. But it's a good mentality, because if we're going to put you in there, then we want you to be comfortable and it's going to fit your needs. Here, we'll squish you into a box until you have 2 months down the road. Now move on, because we got somebody else to bring in.
Right. Okay. So both in Australia and here in the UK, government supply housing to a certain percentage of people who are in need and cannot get private rental that suits their needs or their income, kind of thing. So, but both countries, that home is your home for as long as it needs to be, as long as you pay the rent, look after it, don't trash it, don't upset the neighbors to the point where, the police are being called all the time, don't have like a crack den in the basement or something, you don't want to be doing that. But that's pretty much how it is. And it's yours for as long as you want it. And you can do whatever you want with it within reason. So you can decorate, you can, fit yourself in however you want to do that. Yeah.
And that makes it hard too, because I mean, especially if you move into something, again, going back to the life's transitions, what happens if you're there for 4 months or a year or whatever, and now your situation's different? You have to have a wheelchair, or you have to use crutches or something like that. That's, from the sounds of it, that falls on you to have that taken care of.
Yes and no. If your
okay.
if your health changes drastically, then they will move you into a property that's more suitable for you.
Okay.
Especially if you've had an accident,
Right.
you've had a major back injury or something like that, or car accident or something, and you've ended up in a wheelchair. They are required to help you get into a situation that is more suitable for your needs.
Okay. Well, that makes sense then.
Yeah, which is cool. That's pretty good. So, can you think of any other hidden costs that may come up?
Well, I know one thing we had talked about earlier was light bulbs and keys. Did you?
Yes.
I don't. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, hang on a second. We've got Miss Linda's just said, since March 2020, I've learned to budget $1,000 a month. It took me 2 months to get it balanced, and I got it down packed now. That's rent and utilities. That's pretty good going. Yay!
Yeah, and that's not an easy task. So kudos to
Miss
her.
Linda does some pretty amazing stuff, actually. Just on the quiet, pretty amazing stuff that normally would cost hundreds of dollars or pounds in purchasing, and then she makes it, and I'm just like, she puts me to shame. I'm not even kidding.
No, that's not possible.
Oh, I'm not kidding. That woman makes her own bone meal.
Okay, maybe there are some things.
Right. Yep. Okay. So when you first move into a property, sometimes, and I found this on several occasions, there are no plugs, no light bulbs. No plugs as in sink plugs, bath plugs, they're not there. Light bulbs and not enough keys. Now you need to have at least a minimum of 2 sets of keys. Now when you go into a council property or a government property, depending on what it is, they normally have their own key cutters because they try and keep that as separate to normal key cutting as possible. Especially in Australia, you can only get keys through the council. It's actually illegal to copy keys. And any key cutter caught doing so could lose his entire everything if caught. So, yeah, but then they could charge you $50 to $80 for a new key if you lose one, which is,
There's always an angle.
There is always an angle. So I would always suggest having 3 sets of keys. Now, that's one for you or your partner if you have a partner, or one for, your inside outside kind of thing. And then one as an absolute spare with a completely trusted member of your family or friend, or have it at work or whatever, just for that extra security, just in case, because you never know. Stuff happens, right? Because if you've taken your indoor keys and they're in your handbag or in your pocket or whatever, and you get mugged or your bag gets nicked, and then somehow someone's forgotten to put the rock back with the keys and they've gone, and then you're stuck with no keys. So it's always good to have some in a secure third place. But yeah,
the thing I always end up doing is I'll go to grab the key to use it. I'm too lazy. I'll set it down. Let me go get the second key because I don't want to worry about it. And then now I've locked the door and both sets of keys are inside the house. So
yeah, exactly. Actually, Linda, we do have a waiting list for low-income housing here. Here in York at the moment, if you want a 3-bedroom, if you're in need of a 3-bedroom place and you are on highest band, you are looking at a 5-year wait minimum. And that's the emergency band. Yeah, that's what they call gold band, which is the highest need. So they're going to get seen to first and have their houses before everybody else who's on the list. Yeah.
So how does that work if you have somebody that is, I guess I'm trying to figure this out, so bear with me just a second. How does that work when you got somebody that say's been on the list for an hour? Now all of a sudden you have a more emergent issue arise, and now do you get bumped down on the list just to put that person in?
If they have a higher need than you will be bumped down the list so that they
wow.
can. Yeah.
That's a struggle. But I mean, it is what it is. But I mean,
yeah. Okay, so we've got all those.
another one I can catch is private rental info. We had
yes,
talked about that.
Private rental information. Okay, so a few years ago, a couple of women went to court and got real estate law changed so that real estate agents in this country can no longer turn down someone on benefits. And they can't say no DSS. A no DSS is no longer allowed. It's against equal opportunities and human rights. So, and that was declared by law by the courts a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
However,
dun, dun, dun.
Dum, dum, dum. I can absolutely tell you right now that if you are on benefits, the chances are you will be as far down the list on their list of people who want that house as possible.
Right.
They will do everything in their power to try and not have you in there, even though it's illegal to do so. And they will throw every single admin fee possible at you and try really hard not for you to be in there. And it's very, very wrong.
It's to inconvenience you, so they push you out enough so that you don't worry about it in the time frame. You got to wait for it. Sooner or later, most people will just give up on it and move on. They won't even try to do it.
Exactly. It's too much effort and they can't be bothered, so they don't try. It's very difficult over here to get a rental property that is not through a real estate agent, though. There are very few of them. Pardon me. And then you have to go to places like Gumtree and apps like that to find them. There are some landlords that will put letters up on post offices and stuff, on community notice boards and things, but they're very, very few and far between. And they also tend to be the ones that not always the best landlords to have, because they can be a little bit dodgy. Rental properties here in York are extortionate. And that is because landlords have bought up all the big houses and they've split them down into student housing. So people who are in families cannot afford the rent. We couldn't afford a 1-bedroom house here. Couldn't afford a 1-bedroom flat because it was upwards of £900 a month.
So here, what is happening in the area I live in, which is not typical America, but it still gives you an idea.
Yeah.
The rental properties here are almost non-existent anymore. And what it's created is a housing market that is exceptionally a seller's market. And I'll give you a very quick example. My wife's cousin lives just 2 houses down. She was out looking, and I think it was 5 out of the 9 houses they look out, they put a bid on. And they were outbid almost $100,000 just because it was people from California moving up that had just sold their 2-bedroom house down in California for $1.something million, who now had the extra money to come up here and buy the houses. Now, that's not a budget issue because most of us are not buying $1 million, $400,000, or even $200,000 houses. But here's what it's caused. They're buying up all the houses that were rentals around here, and they're fixing them up, and then they're flipping them and selling them. So now all these rentals that we've had are no longer here. That you cannot rent a house in the town I live in as of today. There is no house to rent.
See, that to me is very frustrating because it actually is very bad for locals. It's incredibly bad for locals, people who live there, who actually live there.
Yeah, you're planted and rooted in the city you're in, and now you have to relocate because there's nothing
where you live. That's to me is so wrong. It's really, really wrong.
I know that was off topic, generally speaking, but it is something to watch for because it goes to what you said earlier. You may not find a place to rent.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And considering how much utility fees and stuff have gone up in here and are due to go up again in October, people are just not going to be able to afford it. They just won't have the money. It's not there. It's not possible. you know, and these landlords are still sitting there wrapping their hat, you know, rubbing their hands
It's a
together
capitalist
gleefully
market.
because
They're
they're getting the money from
yeah,
the students,
yeah,
you know, and
yeah.
it's like, well, that's great, but people actually do live here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
People do live here, you
Here's
know, the people who get your coffee for you, the people who do this, the people who do that, the people who live at work at the hospital, you know, they still live here. They need somewhere to live too.
the frustrating thing for me is when I take what you just said into consideration.
Yeah.
The consideration for the people that live in the town, not during the tourist season,
Yeah.
not during the school academic year,
Mm-hmm.
not through this, not through that. They're the ones that suffer because they don't have anywhere to go, because the accommodation for that type of thing is more on them because they're the ones making us money. When the
Yeah.
reality is, the people that are here year round are paying your taxes. They're the
Yes.
ones that are funding your programs. They're funding
Mm-hmm.
your government things. And they
Yeah.
don't think of it that way.
No. No, they don't.
Sorry. I'll get off my soapbox now.
It's okay. We both have one. It's terrible. We both have a soapbox.
I think the best thing, there's one more thing I want to remind you of, but I'll
Yeah.
come to that in just a second. I think the most important thing I can give anybody for advice to watch out for pitfalls or use as a tip is organize your thoughts, make sure you got everything in line, prepare for the possibility that it might happen, and try to put some money away. That is
Yeah.
the best advice I could give you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely yes to all of those. And there is also something I would like to add. Once you've got through all of that mess, and it is a mess, I'm not going to lie to you. It's why it's one of the most stressful things you can ever do in your life is move house. When you're doing that, in your very first load, if it's in your car or in your van or whatever, you need to have a necessity basket. Okay, because you know, if someone else is doing your moving or you're doing your moving or whatever, you want to have certain things in the home that you're moving to so that you don't have to worry about running out and getting coffees and stuff like that. So you want to have things like a kettle that's usable immediately. So if you've got electric and gas on, you've got one of those. Or if you've got a little camp stove because you haven't got those on yet, take a little camp stove, or have a thermos flask, hot water. At least have something that you can make yourself a brew. Okay, so then you want to have your tea, coffee, milk, and sugar, or milk if you have it, or whatever milk. I don't care. It's all good. Loo roll.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care where you're moving
Sorry.
to. You are going to need the toilets. And
Yeah.
you're going to need it when you just run in from a load and you suddenly realize you don't have any toilet paper. Take it with you. You know, take it with you so that you've got some.
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean,
again, that's something we try to do anyways, just on a normal thing, and it's off topic, but it's not to the same extent. We try to be a month ahead in toilet necessities, whether that's toilet paper or loo roll, as you call it, toothpaste, shampoo, soaps, things like that, because again, you don't know what's going to happen.
No.
So anyways, I'll stop there. But
I totally
I'm
get
with
it.
you.
Totally get it. It's all good. I mean, what we did was, because we buy 4 packs, a 4-pack on offer, so we get, excuse me, 18 roll, four packs of 18 rolls for about £12. That does us 5 months because it's just me and Tanny, right? So it's about 5-6 months worth. We put one of those away in the cupboard 2 years ago. We did that 2 years ago, and it was still sitting in the cupboard. And that was the first thing that came over here was that bag of toilet paper. So we had something, you know, we didn't have to worry about running out and buying it because we already had it in and it was already done. So I would then suggest that you have something like cups, plates, cutlery, glasses, whatever. If you want to bring your dinner set with you, bring it. Or just to bring a picnic set, plastic plates, paper plates, whatever, you know, reusable plastic plates and cutlery though, please. None of this throwaway garbage. Bring your kitchen scissors. They are so useful for everything. You know, they've usually got bottle cap on them, a veg peeler on them. They've got a fish sea scaler. They've got all sorts of things that, gadgets that you may find useful. Bring a sharp knife, bring some soap, hand towel and face cloths, or wet wipes if you're so inclined, whatever.
Can I throw two things in there?
Yeah.
A green scratchy scrubber and either a Brillo pad or an SOS pad type of thing.
Yeah, I was just gonna say cleaning cloths.
Sorry.
So that includes all the scrubbies and stuff.
Okay.
Some dishwashing liquid, charging cables for your phones and your other technology. Bring them in the first load so that if you got
have backups, because you never know when they're gonna break or stop working.
Absolutely.
Or whatever.
Absolutely. Bring an extension cord because you never know. Also, medication. Get all the medications that your household requires and have them in that basket, bag, box, whatever, so that you're not scrabbling around for Tommy's asthma inhaler or, little Julie's, whatever she has to take, and, insulin or whatever. It could be any of that stuff. And if you're moving, your brain is frazzled anyway. Right. Just make yourself lists so you know what's going on. First aid kit doesn't have to be a big one, just enough with a few band-aids, a bit of, antiseptic, whatever.
And just for clarification, I think what people need to realize, what you're really saying is you got 2 or 3 days, theoretically, you don't know what's going to happen. That's what you're telling them to plan for. You're not talking long term.
No. This is
like an emergency kind of thing.
Say 1 week. I'm gonna give it a week, okay? Because I don't care who you are. If you are moving and you have children or family, you are not going to get everything unpacked in that first week. It's not going to happen. It's not. It's hard enough to get the vacuuming done some days. When you've got to pick your kids up when they're flying upside down on some part of the decking or whatever,
Well, and the reality I'm sorry. The reality to it is, all I was going to say is that we got to be thoughtful of their thought process as well. That kids, older people that are moving with us, they're going through a stressful move too. So don't take it out on them. They're going through the same thing we are. Just
exactly.
Take a breath.
The other thing I would suggest to have in there is basic tools. So a screwdriver, a flathead and a Phillips, a set of Allen keys and a hammer.
Yep.
You don't need much more than that, I would say. But
can I throw another thing in there?
Yeah, go on then.
And I think we talked about it. Don't forget your important paperwork.
Yes.
Make sure you take that in your first load.
Yeah. Passport.
And put it where you know where it's going to be.
Have it in the first load so you know where it is. Yep. Okay. And then I would suggest, because it's very useful when you have small children, make sure that every child has and it will make them feel important and part of the process, because kids tend to be a bit shoved out the side when it comes to moving, and smaller children don't like that very much, but they do like to feel important. So brand new backpack or little suitcasey thing, get them to help you pack enough clothes for them for a week, their little blankie, their teddy, their favorite toy, their favorite snack, as much as stuff as they need to get them through that very first week. You don't want to be scrabbling around at 3 o'clock in the morning with overtired, screaming children, including the husband, because he can't find it, or the removal truck hasn't arrived yet, because that happens too.
Yep.
And little
That's Tommy's a valid point.
Teddy bear is stuck on the truck. You don't want that. Get it in the bag, get it in the grab bag, and get it in with the kids, and they will be responsible for their own bag.
I don't know how many times I heard people over here say, well, I moved in, but our moving van's still 2,000 miles away, and they're not going to be here for another week. And it's like, And you didn't think about taking anything with you?
You
Really?
took nothing with you? What?
You packed literally everything in the moving van and drove off. Okay.
Yeah, it's terrifying. Also, in that,
You,
in the little necessity basket, have some spare plugs, light
yeah,
bulbs,
yeah.
and whatever's, because you never know.
No,
Because
you don't.
even if you've gone to look at the place, right, someone might have taken them out. They might have. It happens.
People can break in, they can vandalize. You have no idea. What if they have an emergency flood in the apartment above you or something? You have
Exactly.
no idea what you're moving to until you're there. So
Yeah, exactly. And I know it's a little bit different in Australia and America because you guys can actually move into places sight unseen.
yes.
That's not done here. That is not done here. You have to sight the property first. But still, I have walked into properties where the landlord or whoever has taken all their light bulbs with them, all their plugs with them, because they had a fancy one in the kitchen or whatever, and they took it with them, and you're just sort of sitting there going, I'm not ET. I don't have a little light bulb on my finger. You know?
Yep.
Yes. That's where the kids realize that, when they bend over, the sun does not shine out their butts.
It
Otherwise
doesn't.
there would be light everywhere, wouldn't there? So
I am astonished. I did not realize that.
it's terrible. It's dreadful. But yeah, so,
I get
it's
it.
important to have those things. It is important to have.
I think I like everything you've talked about because I think it really hits about just about everything.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some things we've probably forgotten, but it's and again I'm with you. It's not to scare you. Just don't
Yeah.
make this thought process lightly because it's not a lightly
No,
driven into thought process. It's not.
no. But it's all about being organized,
Yes.
getting yourself prepared for whatever could happen because you don't know what's going to happen. You might think, oh yeah, I'm in a council property, I'll be all right forever and ever. But your upstairs neighbor might get himself smashed off his face and tip over a cigarette onto something that's just going to go poof, and that could be it. You and that could be his flat, your flat, everybody else's flat gone. So
Yep.
you need to be prepared for different situations. And as much as in emergencies, there are organizations out there that can help you. It's better if you don't have to go to them because a lot of them aren't as helpful as they try to make out that they are.
I think the other
weeks and weeks and weeks to help in some cases.
if you're going to get it at all.
Yeah, if you're going to get it at all. Yeah.
I think the other thing I'm stuttering, sorry. I think the best advice I could give anybody right now is treat moving as an emergency fund.
Yeah.
Leave the money there. I don't care if it's $5 a month, $10 a month, 100, 200, 500, whatever it is you can.
Yeah.
Because every little bit is going to help you somewhere down the road, and leave it there. Don't touch it. Don't touch it.
You never know what you're going to walk into.
Right.
You never know what you're going to walk into. And you might end up with fees that you don't even get what you're going to have to pay for. You could walk into a place that you've already seen. It's spotless. It's wonderful. But the last tenant is so pissed off with the landlord that they've decided to vandalize the place and do whatever.
And it happens. I know it happens here. I don't know about there.
You never know because no one's walked into there for the last 48 hours. You walk in there and all of a sudden you've walked into a minefield. So you could be up for new carpets. You could be up for all sorts of things that you didn't think you'd be up for, but you are.
I think Sapphire Diamonds Pearls made a very smart comment. Moving requires a high level of inner patience.
Yes, it does.
If you got yourself this emergency fund, you've got yourself organized to now you know what you need to do, what you need to bring, how you need to plot it out, and you execute that pretty effectively, you'll be fine. You'll get through.
Absolutely. And make
if
lists.
You put yours, if you don't do any of those, yes. Yeah. If you don't do any of those, it's going to be the opposite of what she says. It's going to be chaotic. You're going to find yourself forgetting things. You're going to be running short monetarily,
Yeah.
and you're going to have problems. So
yeah, and you're going to freak out, panic, and just like not be
Yep.
any help to yourself or anybody else.
Yep.
So if you can be as prepared as you possibly are, you know, that's always the goal at the end of the day.
Yep.
And having a notebook like this, if you do have time to plan anything to do with the move, then you can, if you are packing for yourself, you can write down what goes in each box if you want to be that pedantic about it. I know some people do, because if they lose a box and it's full of DVDs or CDs or books or whatever, they then have a list that they can go to the insurance company or whatever, if they have insurance, to be able to go, right, we've lost this, and this, and they've actually got the evidence there to prove it. So, you know, and then they only have to put a number on the box. So, you know, it does make it a little bit easier. Hello, Master Ashley. How are you?
If you do we have a second still?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Sapphire Diamonds Pearls asked the question, I think specifically of me, in my opinion, is it beneficial to rent to own, and why? I would, my personal opinion based on experience only and knowledge, if you can find a rent to own contract, it's wonderful, but make sure you sign everything. You keep it down on paper, you get it in writing. Don't go in with a verbal contract, because you are the one that will lose out. That's the best advice I could give.
Get a third and fourth party to look at that contract.
Yes, I agree. 100%.
Get a third party to look at that contract. Any contracts that you're asked to sign to do with moving that aren't a normal tenancy agreement, if you can't read that yourself, get someone else to read it to you, or to go over it, because they could, especially in a private rental situation, or even if you're going through a real estate agent, there could be hidden clauses in there that you could end up on your bum without, you know.
There's an example right now on YouTube, and it's a channel called Creekside Maples, and they're a very good. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So they actually were on a rent-to-own property. It was 40 acres. They started their business 5 years ago. The landlord come up and said, "We got somebody that wants to buy, cash out, bye. See you later." They have until the end of the end of July to be moved out. Their whole life done.
Wow.
No money, no nothing. They're out.
That's so wrong, though, isn't it?
It is wrong, but it goes along with what we're saying.
That situation at the end of the day, protect yourself, because you protect yourself, and protecting your family. And if that means you have to pay $50 to $100 to go and get a lawyer to look at a piece of paper, pay it. Or go, if you're in the UK, you can go to the Citizens Advice Bureau. They'll do it for nothing, because they have lawyers.
We have things here in the US called legal counsel, or you can usually find a law school that will provide usually free legal service or very minimal cost.
Yeah. So anyway, you can get free legal advice, use it. Oh, and by the way, speaking on that, if you do go to a solicitor for the very first time, you're 9 times out of 10, okay, your first appointment will be free.
Yes.
Get as much out of that as you possibly can. Have a list of questions you want to ask. Make sure you are absolutely 150% on what you want to do, what you want to ask, and get the answers you want. Get the information you need. They may not read documents in that time, but you can ask them every single question that you need to ask them.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there we go. Ashley's down the allotment. Nice. Okay, so in closing, Mr. Tony.
Mr. Wonderful to you.
Any final words, tips, tricks, hacks, whatever you want to call them? Any traps? Anything that you would suggest?
I think the best thing goes back to what we've already said. I hate to repeat it, but be organized. Think it out. Don't put yourself in a position where, I got 3 days to move and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Make sure, even if you give it a half hour of your time, it's worth the half hour of your time. Even if you put $5, $10, $50 away a month, do whatever you can.
Yeah.
Start a fund just in case.
Yeah.
That money isn't going anywhere as long as you leave it there, so it's not a loss to you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
if you don't
the
have it,
best
you won't notice
advice.
it not being there. I mean,
Right.
it might do for the first few weeks, but after that.
But here's a way to look at it. $5 a month for 12 months is $60. That's $60 less you have to worry about later down the road of not having. So
exactly.
That's the best thing I could do.
That's perfect. And I think the other one for me, other than being organized, would be downsize. Get rid of all your
Good
crap.
point.
Okay? Yeah. Get rid of all your crap. Broken toys, broken appliances, bits of whatever that you don't need anymore. Get rid of it all. If you haven't used it in 3 years and it's still sitting in the back of the cupboard gathering dust, give it to a charity shop. Whatever's usable still, give it to a charity shop. If it's not usable, get rid of it. Just, do all of that.
We talked about this earlier real quick, and it goes into what you just said. I think they said an average household will gain 200% of what it has when it moves in within 2 years. Yes. Get rid of your stuff you don't need because you will naturally accumulate.
Yeah, I mean, you might decide when you get to your new place that you don't like your tea, coffee canisters anymore. So all of a sudden you just go, oh, well, I don't like those ones anymore. But you've gone and moved them. But, or you might have decided that before you moved, but you've still packed them up. So get rid of them. Get some new ones. Treat yourself. If you can treat yourself, treat yourself. If you can't, make them fit. Work it out.
Bare minimum before you start. Even if you don't do it before you go, when you do go to put the stuff away, then downsize. Get rid of it before you put it out on a shelf, put it in a cupboard. If you're not using it, there's no need to keep it. There is no point in keeping it.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah.
I'm off my box. It's your show.
That's okay. This is our box to be on. It's all good. Okay, guys, I just want to say thank you so very much to Tony for joining me for this session.
Anytime.
It has been fantastic. I've really, really enjoyed our conversation and your perspective and your input from the US standpoint, because I know a lot of you who do watch this and watch the replay are from the US. So I thought it'd be really useful to have Tony come in and give his perspective. So I just want to say thank you so very much. And if you guys have any questions or any sort of anything that you want to put towards us, just pop it down in the comments below and we will get to it as soon as we possibly can. And until next week, we will see you later on. Have a really, really awesome rest of your week, guys.
Bye.
Love you guys heaps. Bye.